Okay, let's dive right in. We're going to talk about a huge problem in women's health that's hiding in plain sight. And here's the thing, it's not about a lack of data. We have tons of data. The problem is a deep systemic flaw in how we actually understand it. This quote right here, it just nails the whole issue. We've gotten incredibly good at the measurement part, generating all the numbers. But when those numbers are about female biology, our ability to interpret them correctly just falls apart. And that's the core problem we're going to unpack.
So, where does this story even begin? It all starts with lab tests. You really have to think of them as the foundation of all of modern medicine, and especially the digital health world. We measure hundreds of biomarkers, hormones, vitamins, metabolic markers, and this becomes the raw data that's supposed to power everything from personalization to diagnostic.
And it is so important to get this. We are not talking about a minor bug or some small oversight. This interpretation problem is a massive, systemic failure. It's something the industry has been carrying forward for decades, and it affects literally everything that gets built on top of it.
So, this brings us right to the heart of it. We are drowning in data, but we're starved for understanding. And why is that? Well, it's because the tools we all use to make sense of lab results are built on a set of assumptions that are frankly deeply flawed.
Let's just break it down. You can really boil the whole problem down to 3 flawed assumptions. First, we're using generic reference ranges. Second, we're ignoring physiological context. And third, because of that, we're losing crucial system-level signals. Let's walk through each one.
Okay, flaw number 1, generic reference ranges. Most labs compare your results to this universal one-size-fits-all standard that just wasn't designed for female physiology. It completely ignores the dynamic reality of things like hormonal cycles, pregnancy, postpartum, all these huge transitions. So in practice, women's biology ends up being treated like it's a deviation from the average, instead of a complex system with its own set of rules.
Second, there's absolutely no physiological context. Biomarkers are treated like these isolated numbers on a checklist. Is it normal? Is it abnormal? Check the box. But the human body just doesn't work that way. It's not a spreadsheet. Hormones, metabolism, inflammation, micronutrients, these are all deeply interconnected systems. Looking at them one by one is like trying to understand a novel by just reading a random list of words from it.
And third, and this might be the most critical part, all of this leads to a massive loss of system-level signals. So even when every single biomarker is technically in range, the body might already be going through major functional shifts or slowly depleting its reserves. These early warning signs are right there in the data, but they're completely invisible to tools that are only programmed to flag things that are way outside the normal range. So we have these 3 flawed assumptions. What happens when you try to build on top of such a faulty foundation? Well, you get a domino effect. A series of cascading failures that completely undermine the very promise of modern digital health.
The first casualty is pretty obvious. Digital health products simply cannot build accurate models for women's health. It's the classic garbage in, garbage out problem. If your input data is fundamentally misinterpreted from the start, any insights or recommendations you generate will be generic at best and at worst just flat out wrong.
And this is absolutely devastating for AI. Artificial intelligence thrives on finding patterns in rich, contextual data. But when you feed it fragmented, context-free numbers, it can't learn anything meaningful. It's like asking a supercomputer to write a symphony, but only giving it 3 random notes to work with. So what does this all add up to? The end result is that the biggest promises of digital health, things like early risk detection and true, meaningful personalization, they become an illusion. We tell ourselves we're personalizing healthcare, but without a correct interpretation of the underlying biology, we're really just personalizing the noise.
And this slide just lays out the required shift so perfectly. On one side, you have the current, broken approach, generic ranges, looking at biomarkers in isolation, using static thresholds. And on the other side, you have what's actually needed: female-specific logic, real system-level analysis, and a dynamic interpretation that understands biology is constantly in motion.
Okay, so seeing that stark comparison, the question becomes, how do we get from column A to column B? The solution isn't just another app or more lab testing. It's a conceptual one. We need a new piece of infrastructure, a missing data layer that sits right between the raw data and all the applications that need to use it. So what do we mean by a data layer? Well, think of it like an interpretation engine. Its sole job is to take that raw, often messy, lab data and completely transform it into structured, context-aware information that is actually ready to be used by sophisticated tools like AI. So if we were to build this layer, what would its core components be? Well, they would have to directly address the problems we just laid out. It would need to be built on female-specific logic, it would have to be context-aware, and it would need to perform system-level analysis to enable early detection. And, critically, it must be built with privacy from the ground up.
In practice, here's what that looks like. It means applying logic that's specific to female physiology. It means analyzing how different biomarkers relate to each other to find meaningful patterns, not just red flag abnormalities. This is what allows you to detect subtle shifts long before symptoms even appear. And all of this processing has to happen locally, making it fast and completely private.
Now, as we wrap up, it's really important to see this not as some future prediction, but as a description of a real, existing gap in the market today. This is not a hypothesis, it is a structural problem that is actively holding back progress right now.
And the timing couldn't be more critical. The entire digital health industry is making this massive shift away from generic wellness apps and moving toward true biomarker-driven personalization and prevention. This trend makes the data interpretation problem more urgent than it has ever been.
You know, when you step back, it all comes down to a few simple truths. AI cannot work with poorly interpreted data, period. Women's health requires its own physiological logic. Personalization without context is an illusion, and you can't have early prevention without system-level analysis. It's just that simple.
This quote just summarizes the entire gap perfectly. The problem isn't a lack of biological data, and it's not a lack of algorithms. The problem is the giant chasm between the two, right where a reliable, intelligent interpretation layer should be.
And that really leaves us with one final thought. We hear constantly about the transformative potential of AI in healthcare. It's everywhere. But the real question is, who is talking about the quality and the structure of the data we're feeding it? Because without solving that, the AI revolution in healthcare will always remain just a promise.